put his own fingerprints on the power structure that powers Michigan recruiting. And to understand why these hires matter, we need to take a step back and look at what changed. Under the previous regime, Michigan's recruiting department was largely built around Sean McGee, who served as the program's general manager. McGee had become a trusted administrator inside the program and helped coordinate recruiting operations during some very successful seasons at the University of Michigan. But college football has changed dramatically over the past 3 years. The rise of NIL, the transfer portal, and the professionalization of recruiting departments across the country means the job of a modern general manager is no longer just about recruiting boards or coordinating visits. Now it requires something closer to an NFL-style personnel operation, roster management, agent relationships, contract structuring through NIL collectives, portal scouting, long-term roster modeling. Programs like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and USC have begun building entire front offices to manage those dynamics. And that shift appears teams weren't put together by accident. They were the product of disciplined roster construction. And that's exactly what Michigan is betting on. Peloquin is known for a personnel philosophy known as power, big skill, and skill. It's a framework used to categorize prospects based on physical profiles and how they fit specific schemes. In other words, and I know fans are not going to like to hear this, instead of recruiting players simply based on star rankings, the focus is on building a roster that fits the system.
How are we going to win with no 5 stars?
That approach has become increasingly important in the portal era, where roster balance can collapse quickly if you don't have a long-term plan. But what makes Peloquin even more valuable in today's college football landscape is what he did after Notre Dame. Most recently, he worked with a sports agency called Athletes First, leading the company's collegiate representation division. That job gave him something very few college personnel directors have: experience on the agent side of NIL. He's seen firsthand how deals are structured, how players navigate NFL pathway, and how the economics of college football are evolving. For Michigan, that perspective could be a major advantage. Instead of reacting to NIL dynamics, the Wolverines now have someone in the building who understands how the entire ecosystem works. And there's another important factor in this, and it's basically what Kyle Whittingham has built his entire staff on. Peloquin already has strong relationships with several Michigan staff members. He worked closely with running backs coach Tony Alford at Notre Dame. He helped recruit new safeties coach Tyler Stockton, and he spent time in South Bend with new defensive line coach Larry Black. Those connections matter, especially to Kyle Whittingham, because building a recruiting war room isn't just about evaluation, it's about trust between coaches and personnel staff. Another area where Dave Peloquin could have a major impact at Michigan is something fans almost never see. Recruiting is no longer just about evaluation and relationships, it's also about resource allocation. Every program has to decide where it invests its time and money. Official visits, travel for coaches, recruiting events, high school camps, transfer portal scouting, and now, of course, NIL opportunities. A modern-day general manager helps manage that entire ecosystem. At a place like Michigan, the recruiting department may be evaluating hundreds of prospects across the country every year. But not every player can receive the same level of attention or investment. What someone like Peloquin brings is a structure instead of disrupting it. You don't want a locker room where One position group is dramatically overcompensated compared to another. You don't want to overspend on short-term portal fixes while neglecting high school recruiting. And you definitely don't want NIL negotiations happening without a clear organizational strategy. Goal isn't simply to win a bidding war for Skylar Fan. While Dave Peloquin brings experience and structured leadership to Michigan's personnel department, the program's second major hire brings something equally important: energy and a modern approach to recruiting strategy. Michigan added Skylar Fan to its personnel department after she served as director of recruiting strategy at USC. And that role came during one of the most dramatic recruiting turnarounds in recent college football history. When Phan arrived at USC, the Trojans were ranked number 17 nationally in 2024 and number 13 in 2025. But in 2026, USC had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And Phan was widely credited with helping coordinate the strategy behind that surge. Her background includes several key stops across football operations. She served as director of on-campus recruiting at Houston, then held the same role at North Texas during the 2023 recruiting cycle. She worked inside the Longhorns recruiting department as a football recruiting and operations assistant. So despite being early in her career, she has already been exposed to recruiting from multiple levels of football, from college operations to the NFL environment. But the significance of this hire isn't just her resume. It's what Michigan's recruiting operation could begin to look like because of it. In many traditional college programs, recruiting departments were built primarily to support the coaching staff, handling traveling logistics, visit planning, and administrative tasks. But the program that consistently signs elite recruiting classes today operate very differently. They run recruiting more like a strategic campaign operation. Every recruit has a personalized plan, every visit has a narrative, every interaction with the program is intentional. And that's the type of system Phan helped implement at USC. Part of her role there involved helping build the structure behind the recruiting strategy, developing individualized plans for how each prospect should be recruited, understanding their priorities, understanding who influences their decisions, and understanding what kind of environment they respond to, then designing every part of the recruiting process around those insights. All of it aligned around a clear message of how that recruit fits inside the program's future. And if Michigan's new recruiting war room operates the way it appears to be designed, Phan will likely play a central role in organizing that system. Taken together, these hires tell us something important about the direction of Michigan football under Kyle Whittingham. This isn't just about replacing staff, this is about building infrastructure. College football is entering an era where programs operate more like NFL franchises. And the programs that win consistently are the ones that built the best systems behind the scenes. The Wolverines could soon have one of the most sophisticated recruiting operations in all of college football. All right, Michigan fans, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode of The Breakdown. I'll see you on the next one.
If you like this kind of content, please like, share, follow, and subscribe. And as always, go blue.